Woo! Hey! And that's the opening of Centrelink, not the office where you collect your job seeker payment, but the Ourimbah mountain bikers' new downhill extension trail. The extension was funded by the state government's Community Building Partnership Scheme and provides a more technically challenging trail for experienced riders. The opening, however, coincides with a major flare-up between mountain bikers and environmentalists who have claimed unauthorised trail building is causing excessive damage to the bush and who are seeking to have riders expelled from sensitive areas such as Kingcumber Mountain. Riders have hit back with claims that people have set dangerous booby traps on trails, including fishing line, obscured logs and nail spikes, and called upon the council and the state government to provide more trails to cater for the rapid growth in mountain biking. Last week we reported on grave concerns raised by the Community Environment Alliance over the proposed housing development by the Darkinjung Local Aboriginal Land Council in native bushland in Carryong. The site is adjacent to the well-known Bambara, home to a number of Indigenous sacred sites. Well, this week the Darkinjung Land Council hit back. Chairperson Matt West said much of the site would be preserved and that the proposed housing development would provide important economic and social support for local Indigenous people. West also said he was keen to dispel the pervading rhetoric that Aboriginal people should only be allowed to use their land for cultural purposes. It's an issue that already is causing a major divide within local Indigenous communities, and we'll have more on that for you in coming weeks. In other news, the Central Coast Council has triggered some anger across households this week with the decision to lift council rates by 2.6% in 2021. The increase is allowed under a ruling by the Independent Pricing and Regulatory Tribunal, but the increase is estimated to strip $4.4 million out of residents' pockets at a time when many households are struggling economically due to COVID-19. And it was with great sadness we reported this week on the passing of a great champion of the Central Coast, Malcolm Brooks. Malcolm was well known to everybody as the local member for Gosford from 1973 to 1976 and for serving in local government as an alderman and councillor for more than 20 years, including a couple of terms as mayor. Some will also remember Malcolm from his earlier years as a rally car driver who participated in the famous Red X trials, as well as being an active pilot along with his wife, Tricia. David?
Yes, Ross, and many of you will know that Malcolm was instrumental in the establishment of the COS, that's the Coastal Open Space Scheme, and a driving force behind the establishment of the Regional Gallery in East Gosford, and for a drive of our own Performing Arts Centre in Gosford. His contributions to local government on the coast were recognised by councillors this week, including former mayors Chris Holstein and Jane Smith. North Connects has hit another milestone and another photo opportunity for our politicians. The first drive-through of the tunnel opened today, and when it was published, it featured some new Swedish tunnel technology just to keep drivers awake. Member for Gosford Liesl Tesch this week hit out at the newly formed local planning panel, saying it was a rubber stamp for development. Let's hear what she has to say.
The LPP is being chaired by Donna Reigate, an experienced person in this regard, though we've heard from yourself and others that she doesn't have local experience. Do you think that's an issue in this situation?
I believe holding on to the integrity of the coast and the coast community and everything we stand for, and also having a touch point on the local community and a significant voice is what people elect our council for. So taking this voice away, I think, is a loss to the people. It's a loss in our democracy. And I don't take any of her expertise out of the picture, but there's a whole bunch of planning processes where we use experts along the way, and the council staff are still delivering in there, but we're actually paying outsiders to make our local community planning decisions.
While we're on council news, the long-awaited economic development strategy was released this week for public comment. The strategy will be on exhibition for just 28 days until July 20 at 5 p.m. and can be downloaded from the council's website. And finally, Ross, local football women and men alike are excited by the news that the Women's World Cup 2023 is coming to Australia and New Zealand. Hot on the heels of that news was the announcement by Mayor Lisa Matthews that the council would push to host some of the events and potentially one of the visiting international teams right here on the coast. I spoke earlier today with Gabby, a former councillor and now development manager with the Central Coast Mariners.
Yeah, look, I think, the Central Coast would be crazy to miss this opportunity. I actually started talking to some of the local councillors a couple of days ago about the fact that, council, should really be jumping on the front foot because there's an opportunity to, host teams that are competing in this. This will be the first Women's World Cup with 32 teams competing. So I really think Central Coast should be putting their hand up. Our close proximity to Sydney puts us in a really ideal location to host one, if not more than one team on the coast and promote the Central Coast as a destination for their supporters to come and base themselves out of.
And that is very exciting news for the football community here on the coast. In other sports news, the Central Coast New Zealand Warriors coach Steve Carney was sacked earlier this week following the team's heavy defeat by the Rabbitohs in Sydney last weekend. The news was delivered over the phone from the club CEO Cameron George in Auckland and reportedly came as a complete shock to players and coaching staff. Cronulla Sharks legend Paul Gallen described the decision as heartless after all the dislocation the club has been through in recent months, not to mention a slew of injuries to key players. Here's Cameron George.
Oh, look, none of this just pops up overnight, with all due respect. We as a club, we constantly review, evaluate and understand where we're going in the future and understand what's been happening in the past. So over an extended period of time, we constantly review performances on and off the field of all staff and players naturally. And, we obviously have had a bit of a challenging year on and off the field, but that's on the back of a challenging year last year as well. So it's a compounding effect that we, being myself, the CEO, need to make decisions in the best interest of the club moving forward.
And Coast News issue 248 hit the street this morning with all these stories and much more. And you can visit our website to see where you can get it. Now, you may have just watched it, but the rebroadcast of The Afternoon with Coast Opera Australia, Disney to Diva, with exclusive interviews with the stars, is available on the Coast Opera Australia Facebook page. And we leave you this evening with a snippet from the show from tenor Gaetano Bonsante. I'm Ross Barry, and we'll see you next week.
Che bella cosa una giornata sole, un'aria serena dopo una tempesta, quell'aria fresca pare già una festa. Che bella cosa è una giornata sole, andato sole, più bella in me, oh sole mio, sta in fronte a te, oh sole, oh sole mio, sta in fronte a te, sta in fronte a te.